Welcome to another episode of Money Majlis, with the show where we decode the future of money, work, and society with the leaders who are actually building it. Today, we are diving into one of the most important shifts of our time: how artificial intelligence is moving from hype to real-world impact in boardrooms, classrooms, and even in our daily lives. Over the past few years, AI has gone from a niche topic for technologists to a board-level priority and a career-defining skill for professionals in every industry. Yet many leaders are still asking the same questions. How do we move beyond pilots and proofs of concept? How do we use AI to grow responsibly without losing trust or jobs? And how do we make sure women and other underrepresented groups are not left behind in this AI revolution? My guest today, Dr. Ayesha Khanna, has been working at the center of exactly these questions, advising Fortune 500 companies, building AI ventures, and designing education platforms that help people skill up, not panic. If you're a banker, a fintech starter, a technologist, a policymaker, or just someone trying to understand where your own career fits in an AI-driven world, this conversation is for you. But first, a commercial break.
Fab Business Banking presents Money Majlis, a podcast shaping conversations on banking, finance, technology, and marketing. Visit bankfab.com to learn more.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Saxo Bank, the trusted European bank helping you make better investment decisions.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Network International, the leading digital payments technology company in the Middle East and Africa.
Money Majlis is proudly supported by Aqua Now, the premier crypto-as-a-service provider, now building in partnership with the top financial institutions in the Middle East. Discover more at aquanow.com.
Money Majlis is brought to you by E&, a global technology group. Money Majlis is proudly sponsored by WealthBricks Capital Partners Limited, the trusted, independent, and expert wealth management firm.
My guest on Money Majlis today is Dr. Ayesha Khanna, one of the most respected voices globally on artificial intelligence, digital transformation, and the future of work. Ayesha is the co-founder and CEO of Addo, an AI company that helps large enterprises and governments use data and AI to build smarter services from financial institutions to smart cities. Over the past 20 plus years, she has advised Fortune 500 CEOs and public sector leaders on AI strategy, innovation, and governance. Ayesha sits on the global boards and advisory councils and has been recognized as Forbes' groundbreaking female entrepreneur in Southeast Asia, as well as a LinkedIn top voice for AI. She has been featured on lists such as Salesforce's AI Influencers to Know, Edelman's Top 50 AI Creators, and Favicon's Top Female Influencers in Singapore, all acknowledging her impact as a thought leader and a builder in the AI space. She is also the founder of Amplify, a venture-backed, Singapore-based media and education company that helps professionals and leaders turn AI from buzzwords into everyday advantage through courses, content, and a podcast called AI Across Borders. Through Amplify, she offers scholarships to girls and mid-career women to build practical AI skills and meaningful careers in the AI area. Earlier, Ayesha founded 21st Century Girls, a charity that has taught thousands of girls and young women in Singapore coding, AI, and robotics through free programs like Code in the Community and Empower AI for Girls. Ayesha is joining me today from Singapore via Zoom. Ayesha, it's a pleasure to have you on Money Majlis. I hosted your husband Parag Khanna, the futurist and geopolitical expert, on my show in my last season, season 2. And today it's your turn in season 3. I'm delighted, really delighted that we are finally connecting, even though not face-to-face. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Suvo. It's a real pleasure to be here today.
As an icebreaker, Ayesha, I'm very tempted to ask something I'm curious about. What are the dinner table conversations you have between your futurist husband, Parag, your AI enthusiast daughter, Zara, and your son, Zubin, who I understand is now working on robotics. What do you mostly discuss at dinner? I'm sure not green vegetables.
We do discuss green vegetables, but we also often discuss what's in the news.
Mm-hmm.
Parag especially reads some interesting articles and analysis and prints it out sometimes, and then we have a discussion. Could be anything related to geopolitics or art, can be philosophy, and can, of course, include tech as well. But our emphasis is never only on technology in the house.
Mm-hmm. Aisha, you spent over 2 decades working at the intersection of AI, data, and digital transformation, from Wall Street to founding Addo and now Amplify. If you look back, what were the one or two pivotal moments that convinced you that AI would be the defining technology of your career?
It really started when I was on Wall Street, because Wall Street several decades ago was investing a lot of money into data and computational finance. We were using statistics, algorithms to help risk management, derivatives trading algorithms, wealth management, all of these functions of the bank where I was consulting and where I was employed were looking at how data and machine learning could be used to expedite decisions. And I realized then that the increase in productivity, predictability was very high. And the Wall Street banks were seeing something that and investing in data in a way that was being done nowhere. So the question then really became for me, how do I take what I'm seeing in the bank and investigate what's happening in every industry? And so the first was Wall Street and the second was my PhD, because then I really went and started looking at smart urbanization, or what is called smart cities. And I looked particularly at a case study of sustainable transportation and artificial intelligence. That was a game changer to me, because I was not only looking at what the technology was capable of, but its interactions with teams and people. And that really made me realize how important it is to have the right ecosystem partners and the right team members to actually effectively use AI for impact, for corporations to make greater margin, anything you may have. So those two laid the foundation of my thinking, and how to have a consulting firm, which is what I started when I moved to Singapore after that, that really focused on enabling and empowering leadership to use the resources at their hand. And when they did not have the AI engineers and data scientists, that's where we came in, because we were highly, highly experienced, the group of us that started the company. And since then, I've never looked back. I've always been CEO and co-founder of this deeply technical engineering firm, but also on boards and otherwise advising leadership on the human side of it, on the cultural side of it. And where the two come together is where we really see great progress, whether it be in a firm or a government agency.
Amazing, amazing. So Aisha, when you talk to boards and CEOs today, what's the single biggest misconception you still hear about AI? I mean, despite all the noise on AI, especially since ChatGPT came out in late 2022, what is the biggest misconception that you encounter?
The biggest misconception CEOs and boards have about AI is that it's a technology undertaking. That if somebody has suddenly come on the cover of a magazine and talked about their savings, their increase in productivity, their growth in consumer base, that is because they were fastest to deploy the technology. But actually, it was much more than that. It was a leadership initiative. In other words, there was clarity on the problems they were solving. If you look at successful companies, because ultimately the goal was a business outcome. Secondly, it was the ability to move, convince, and show middle management that this was not a replacement for them, but would actually help them in their jobs and give them a path to career mobility. That was very, very important. And the companies that didn't do that, it was like quicksand. All their AI initiatives would just not move. So these two things, the leadership in taking an idea or a technology and converting that into a North Star business activation is very important. And secondly, of course, nothing can be done without teamwork. It's actually instituting the kind of culture that is comfortable with AI as an assistant. And now it has to be comfortable with having an AI as a teammate that can work autonomously. And then the next phase will be it has to be comfortable managing this human AI workforce with the right vision and the right risk guardrails.
Interesting. You described this era as a hybrid age where humans and intelligence coexist at every part of your life. If we fast forward 5 years, let's say 2030, what are one or two concrete ways you think the daily work of a typical manager or a leader will be visibly different?
First of all, for any manager, the team that they will lead will include humans, but also AI agents. And what this means is that they will be AI agents that will be autonomously doing work. And of course, we see Goldman Sachs is working with Anthropic to create these AI agents for their compliance and finance department, for example. Then a successful manager will have to upskill their human team to actually be able to do something else which is value added. Now, it depends. If they are wealth management managers, they can spend more time with their clients. If they are risk management people, they can actually go and research some additional risk that is coming, or they can go and actually report a strategy to the board. There are many ways in which they should have another path to add more value. The third thing that they have to do is to teach the AI agents as well, because the AI agent will actually need training on things that matter to the team, on the things that are values, data, ways of thinking that has to be digitized and then become part of the agent. And finally, accountability. No matter if their team is human or AI, they still need to be accountable for it. They need to have a escalation policy, and they also need to know how to correct it if it makes mistakes, or rather prevent it from making mistakes. So in some way, it's the same job. It's very similar. But now suddenly there are two things to it. One, the nature of your team is human and AI. And secondly, you should ideally, if you're doing it right, have the time to expand your own potential, your own capability, and your own career progression and value add to the organization.
So that would mean continuous learning, right? If I'm a manager in my 40s, I'm not going back to college in a hurry. How do I keep pace with what's going on around me? It's almost explosive, right? The news around us. What I see every day on my internet feed is almost scary. As a manager in my 40s, what do I do to stay on top?
This is the money question. So since this is Money Majlis,
Yes.
Anyway, look, I think there's a big gap at the moment. This is why I started the Amplify leadership platform, because it's really about giving these mid-career to senior managers across the world in different industries a way to separate the hype and noise from the core principles, organizational principles of how to achieve business results with AI. And there is nothing out there right now. If you go on LinkedIn or X or just start reading magazines, it's this nonstop noise of the new models and what they can do. But fundamentally, there's an evolution. And that evolution most recently started with generative AI and the ability to use AI assistants for personal productivity, then to use AI assistants together with your team to review things together, to do first drafts, and now what they call agentic AI, which is this ability for the AI to autonomously do things on its own. And the next thing will be, well, now everybody is a manager, which by the way is something very new. So the first skill is everybody should learn to be comfortable with AI. The second is you should know how to talk to AI to get what you need from it. And the third is you should be able to manage AI. But only a small number of people at the top are managers. But really what we're going to see is we're going to see the equivalent of departments of one or two people along with AI agents. And the humans are managing the agents. And then you're collaborating much more with adjacent departments that because of bureaucracy, because of being burnt out from all the work you had, there were always silos and enterprises. So the successful enterprises will have these managers who remained upskilled through taking modules and webinars from institutions such as the one that I have. And then they're able to adjacently work with their peers. And that means now you have what would be whole of organization, just like whole of government, where you truly become one team that is supported by this foundation of AI agents that are doing a lot of the work autonomously. And you are able then to create a path for increased profitability, increased customer growth. That is where we need to see managers understand that's the North Star and then reverse engineer to a pathway to that within the next 5 to 10 years.
So if I'm an MBA fresh out of college, even 5 years back, right? Or let's say 10 years back, is my MBA relevant anymore in how to manage my organization or how to work in the organization?
I never like to think that what we have put our time into is irrelevant because it implies that it was a waste of time. And I think that's a fear that people have because of this sense that AI is going to take over. Anything that you have thought about, put time in, makes you a better judge of being with an AI that can do some of those things. So domain expertise remains extremely important. And if you know and have studied how organizations have been run in the past, and you know it's going to be different now, well, at least you know what was done in the past and you wouldn't repeat that. And you know, some of the things that worked with humans will also work with AI agents. And the 25% that doesn't, well, then that is where you would go and take your executive MBA courses, for example. The single most important thing that is necessary is deep expertise still, in my opinion, because we go in and we speak all the time to companies that want to use AI, but we are unable to really expedite or accelerate their growth without the domain experts who are employees and who know the company, who know the problems, who know the challenges, the competitors, and their aspirational North Star. It's not possible to do it without them because then they understand the business data and the rules and are able to judge if the AI is correct or not. The new thing, of course, is that people are right to say that you need more than that. And if, this is not new. We've had this notion of a T-shaped individual for some time. But the T, the bar on top, means that now you must have the ability to collaborate with other people because you can't be siloed anymore in your own specific department or your own specific function because now you will have the time to go and meet with other people. And at the highest level, at the most senior level of any organization, are people working with each other and doing strategy and teamwork and going out to new markets. And you will need to have some AI fluency as well, which means you will have to understand how AI works at a logical level, how it can benefit your customers at a brand aligned level, and then, of course, how to prevent it from creating any fiascos or any malicious attacks. So I would say it still matters, but it is not enough. But certainly anything you have done, even if you studied for exams when you were a child, to what you did yesterday, to what you did this morning, it matters because it makes you the kind of professional that is ethical, has impact, has knowledge that is still going to be very highly valued by businesses.
Actually, I talked there about executive education and continuous learning, very good points. And you work personally with a number of universities and colleges. Do you honestly believe that most global universities and colleges are keeping pace with what's going on in order to teach executives what's going on? No.
No, they're not keeping up to it. They're trying to, but they're unable to because they are not operators. And this is always the challenge, that the people who are teaching AI have never actually built a system, have never operated it themselves. And so there is a bit of a gap in terms of the speed by which they can appreciate or give advice on how it happens. There are no templates at the moment. The best way to do it is to look for education, for lack of a better word, or upskilling from people who have either been involved in building it for companies, such as my company has, or that have actually operated large companies and digitized them with AI, of which there are few examples, and also listen to podcasts such as the one that you have, where startup founders who have effectively become AI native companies to get ideas from them. This is the way. It's a bit unstructured, but this is one way to educate oneself. I do believe, though, that universities are changing, at least in Singapore and the polytechnics that we have in NUS, National University of Singapore, Nanyang Technology University. They are looking at making internships a big part of the undergraduate experience. They are looking at having people take courses and upgrade themselves. And the whole government has redefined learning as a lifelong learning undertaking with a series of initiatives where everybody, including me, I have a skills passport, for example. And I am subsidized by the government to take courses that are relevant and timely. So you need this kind of systematic approach for your human capital so that they are prepared to take on this new world in the AI era.
Aisha, you have a daughter who practices AI. You have a son who's doing robotics. Do you believe AI fluency is what will separate men from the boys and women from the girls in the future?
I believe that AI fluency is very important because if you don't know how to work with AI agents, it's similar to saying, well, I don't like working with other people. It's very hard unless you are a really superstar just on your own. It's very hard even in today's world to be, whether you are a basketball player or a conductor of an orchestra or a highly placed CEO of a bank, to be successful. So really, it is the emergence of a new type of entity in the workplace. And you have to communicate it in a certain way. You have to manage it in a certain way. You have to learn how to incorporate it and redesign your workflow so that they're better with its support. That means that in order to be successful in the narrow sense of successful in your business or your career or your profession, then yes, that will make a big difference. This leaves aside the question of emotions, companionship, and other things in which AI is coming, but we're not talking about any of that right now.
Now, that's a good segue to my next question, Aisha, which is about Addo. You worked in Addo with large enterprises and governments on AI strategies, on smart cities, on data platforms, etc. In your experience, what distinguishes the 10 or 20% of organizations that successfully scale AI from the majority that remain stuck in, what's called pilot purgatory? How do you move from the whole POCs to actual implementation, which delivers results?
The Wall Street Journal recently had an article which rightly said that anybody who uses the word pilot now, immediately you know that company is not doing it seriously. Because it used to be that there would be an innovation department and they would do these little pilots with a small number of users and very little data. And it would look very good in the demo, but it would never scale. And so you never got any return on investment on it. The key to having any successful technology, including artificial intelligence, is to have the foundational pieces in place. And the most important foundational piece for artificial intelligence is data. because to work at scale in a large organization, it needs to provide value to the employees and to the customers, and it needs to know something about their pain points, their desires, their goals, and the background context of what they need. And that requires them, the AI agents, to have access to the data. Most companies still, even though many are getting their act together around it, have data that is siloed, dispersed all over the organization. A lot of the work that we do at Addo is the data strategy and data implementation of a modern data architecture, connecting all their systems so that there is a single source of truth that you can trust that will then go on to inform this AI solutions, AI assistants that you build for different departments. This is the first thing. The second thing they do is they let the tech team do it and they don't involve the business. This is a big mistake because the tech team then starts building solutions, and this is an age-old problem in tech that the business doesn't find useful. And it's very important for business and tech to work collaboratively together, which is a challenge because in the past, it was very difficult for technology to explain to business what they were building. But now with generative AI, you can very quickly build clickable prototypes. You can generate images and diagrams that help communicate the different options that business users have in their workflow. And if I think that if they're able to work together in an easier way with AI facilitation in terms of the support that it provides, this will really, really help in providing value. The last thing I would say is that the way to measure AI success is also not clear. Because if it's only about efficiency, that has a ceiling. In order to have efficiency, you can take what is being done in a terrible way, in a chaotic way, and you can automate it. And that's really what a lot of people did in the beginning. But to have truly transformative developments, you have to redesign your workflows so that you can do them better and then delegate those redesigned workflows to AI so that it can automate that. If you don't do that step, you will have some companies that are just efficient, but they're kind of on a treadmill that's not really moving forward. But the companies that are able to use it to think beyond just accelerating their drug discovery, but actually redesign how parts of their drug discovery are done, maybe in silico, for example, or testing with certain simulations, then they will actually break out and start running forward in the lane. And so I think these three things are the key to not only being stuck in pilots, but actually have a culture that is conducive to this AI factory, because it's not a one-time thing, right? You're constantly improving yourself. To the third, where you are just not improving, but redesigning for accelerated growth.
Very well put. So, Aisha, on that point, if you're advising a regional or global bank today, from your experience of working with financial institutions, what are some of the first few use cases that can show tangible value in 12 to 18 months, you think?
So there are two things that companies, or three things that people are very concerned about at banks. Number one is, of course, where there is pain and where data is available. So it's internal processes where you think, I would say it's almost like low-hanging fruit, where you think it can actually make our existing teams more productive. So let's just take the loan department, right? Intelligent document processing, KYC, contracts, loan applications, frees up your people to speak, therefore, much more to the end clients, internal clients, for example, that are in different departments. The second thing is, can you capture a market that you did not have before? And for example, sticking with the same thing, you can say, am I able to have alternative data, for example, for credit risk scoring? And that will give me SMEs who are traditionally underserved because legacy models don't have that kind of data, and you have to use another proxy for somebody's data rather than just their credit card or their banking transactions. Some of them are offline. And the third thing people think about is finally, is the last thing actually, is how do you intersect with the customer with your AI? And the reason why this is the last thing people think about is because this is the most sensitive, which is whether it is autonomously carrying out something the customer said or intelligently giving them advice on, for example, not just rules-based, right? I'm talking about intelligent advice of planning and mapping out their SME's financial trajectory, giving them advice on what kind of loans they should take given the data that you have. That and the context that the customer gives you, that is all about user experience to the extent that it is the only interface that they have with the bank. Now, I've taken a very specific department. You have many, many departments, from trade finance to trading to investment banking to wealth management. Each one of them will have similar number one, number two, number three priorities. But that is usually the way it goes. The good thing is that once you do one thing right, it's like a discipline. You get your data right, you get your AI layer right, you get your data governance and AI governance and risk management right. And then you start working with your business users to build useful solutions, then that's a copy and paste in terms of discipline or project management of for such an undertaking. So there's a combination of the technical architecture and the cultural change in collaboration with the business users. That's the secret sauce. And then you just keep repeating it. But most people don't get their basics right. That's why you see that it's still fragmented and there's no method to the madness, unfortunately.
Also, this race to implement AI, Aisha, sometimes to impress the stock market, is there a danger, real danger, that we forget to take our customers along with us or our staff along with us?
Actually, the SEC calls it AI washing, where you are just trying to put AI everywhere. And now they're going to actually look at it quite seriously in the US, where AI is just being used to create stock market hype or to get a bump in the stock price. But even if you don't do AI washing, if you're not taking along your employees on the journey, you will lose people who have been very loyal to your brand and who your customers trust, who your other employees trust as their colleagues. And that automatically reduces the growth of the company. The stock market in general is now looking for growth. If you hear some of the earnings calls, even a year or two ago, CEOs would come and they would say that it's all about efficiency. We were able to replace 60 people. We were able to replace 1,000 people, 10,000 people. And if it's a large enough number, the market will give you a bump. But analysts now also expect to say, well, how, did your growth increase? Right? Did your EBITDA overall increase? How's your free cash flow? Like they're looking at a lot of other things. What's your strategy? Because growth is where you really stand out, whereas efficiency will eventually become table stakes for everyone. And that then means you have to pay attention to your customers and bring them along, because that's the only way you increase revenue. So all of the things that in the mad rush to just put AI in, they're ignoring just for short-term bumps are going to be problematic to them in the long run, where your leading and core employees still matter, because that's how you get the job done. Even if you're not hiring new people, the existing workforce that you have is very important to grow. And secondly, of course, are your customers. It all comes down to that. It's not the speed by which or the cost at which you implement a service. What's your net promoter score? Are your customers happy with it or not? And if you're really thinking about it, it's not the speed with which you make a decision with AI. Was it the right decision or not? Was it the best decision to make for the growth of the company? That humans can decide much better, at least for now. And that's the subtlety that people miss out on.
Aisha, you work with multiple organizations. From your experience, are you seeing customers generally comfortable with the use of AI by companies? Or are they feeling uncomfortable, disenfranchised, I can't talk to a human being anymore kind of a feeling? I mean, there are customers are their customers, right? There are tech-savvy customers who can take to AI very quickly, but there are people who probably not as tech-savvy, who probably want or value human connections and are actually resisting the fact that the company is throwing AI at them.
In general, I find that young people like their services to be fast, to have minimal interaction. They don't necessarily want the most chatty AI also. They want something that is less cognitive load, that is simplified. Generation Z is fine with having digital interfaces, AI to give them medical advice also, which is validated by a proper doctor in terms of the risk guardrails. But they also want to have the transparency. So and I'm talking about young people, I'll talk to the older generation about it later, but they also like transparency. They don't want somebody taking advantage of them. And so that is what they don't like. And it's hard because AI is not so explainable. It can be a black box, but I always advise my clients to communicate. It's very important to explain as much of it as you can to people because that engenders trust. Now, on the one hand, something very different is happening with Gen Z and others in the world, which is sometimes confuses people. So they don't want to have a lot of interaction, endless notifications. Gen Z is the one generation that puts off notifications the most on their iPhones or Android phones, for example. But they also chat with AI more than ever before, up to 2.5 hours a day, according to some reports. But they don't like social media. So they like to meet in real life much more also. And they put off their phones so it's very hard to read the signal of how far one can go before the bank becomes creepy. So you don't want to ever become creepy. Your value is not to become their friend. Your value is to give them the easiest way to do their transactions, grow their wealth, and protect their savings and their financial trajectory. So that's where brand alignment really matters. Now, it may be different for the older generation that's retired in their 80s or 90s, for example. For one of our healthcare clients, these were retirees who like to speak to a human being. They like to have longer conversations with them. And at that point, the AI was helpful because for those people talking to them, the AI assistant was not for the customer, it was for the person who was serving the customer and was able to draw up policies, options, automatically support them in booking appointments for doctors, for visits, for scans, for their customers, and so on and so forth. So that's where the human touch is more needed. So personalization with AI is a very fine line, and user experience has to be really catered to the particular generation and actually to the particular person and what they like more and more.
Now, we talked about transparency there, Ayesha. I mean, regulators and boards we are seeing are rightly worried about risks, right? Data poisoning, bias, hallucination, cybersecurity, and models that are very opaque, right? The black box, as you call them. What practical governance frameworks have you seen work in real organizations that want to be ambitious with AI, but not reckless or not thoughtless?
Well, I mean, in terms of governance, it's really on top of mind for all the boards. Because one big mistake, it's like having a cybersecurity attack. It really erodes trust. We have seen that companies that have had AI agents hallucinate, say things that were inappropriate, have really had an impact on their stock price and the trust that people have in them. So having AI risk management, which is very different from cybersecurity risk management, is very important. And now with agents as well, there's a whole new world of how to manage AI. It doesn't mean that you're being too cautious. In fact, it's the only way to unleash the potential of AI. It is the only responsible way to unleash it. Unless it's a very high risk use case, usually risk can be managed with a variety of cases. And if it's too high risk, then just don't do it. It's not worth it, basically. So at all the boards that I sit, we have a regular review of AI risks. We review it. We have a heat map, a catalog of use cases. If they're AI agents, you always have a human who is accountable for it. And then, of course, you have an understanding of the risk in terms of its implications operationally, financially, impact, reputationally as well. So there's a new methodologies coming with the EU AI Act, with the NIST framework and others on how to implement this. And Singapore just released guidelines for AI agents as well as it had earlier for AI governance for generative AI.
You said, Ayesha, that critical thinking will be the most important skill in an AI-driven workplace. How should then financial institutions rethink their talent strategy so that people can challenge AI inputs, not just blindly follow them?
It all starts with the interview process. What is the kind of person that you're having come? And the interview needs to be far less about the degree that you had and far more about how you would problem solve. It's how vivas are done for thesis. It's how you can imagine Socrates used to talk to people. It's about forcing people to defend their thinking so that they can force AI to defend their thinking. And this is a great skill that we're taught in schools and then forget because we become so engrossed in the work that we're doing on a daily basis that we don't have much thinking time. With AI, people should begin to have more thinking time, especially for the smart organizations that let them think. So one of the new things that's happening is that you have more time and then the company is dumping double the work on you. This is a trend people are seeing. So it's actually more stressful to work with AI for some people than to work without it. But if the company is smart and has foresight, it will give that time to people to think, to critically evaluate and test assumptions, and to really train the AI, which can degrade, by the way, unless it has new context and new governance. So that's what you need. You need to think not only for yourself, but to all these AI agents that you're managing. Once the leading banks start to put that as a criteria for their inclusion in their teams, the education system will automatically update itself and start to emphasize it again. So it's basically a chicken and egg problem, and it has to start with the employers, in my belief.
Amazing. This is a good time for a commercial break. But before we do that, I would like to remind our listeners about the social impact mission of this podcast. A huge part of the profits of Money Majlis go to charitable causes, both regionally and globally. In every episode of this podcast, my guest gets a gift card of $1,000 to contribute to one of the 6 charities featured on moneymajlis.com. My guest today, Ayesha Khanna, has chosen to redeem her $1,000 gift card for Dubai Cares. Ayesha, thank you very much. As a listener, you too can get your $50 gift card by simply visiting my website, moneymajlis.com. Please click on the charity of your choice and the money will be transferred on your behalf to that charity. It's that simple, so I hope you'll join me in my giving movement. See you after this short commercial break.
Running a business means you have to make countless decisions every single day, some small, some risky, yet all pave the way to your success. That's why you need a seamless business banking app that doesn't just react, it anticipates. From digital account onboarding, effortless fund transfers, smart payroll and utility payments, easy digital service requests, exciting rewards and benefits, and long-term tailored solutions, the Fab Business Banking app gives you everything you might need, anytime, anywhere. The Fab Business Banking app, the one app for you.
In Money Majlis, we talk about making informed money decisions. With Saxo Bank, you get access to global markets from a single advanced trading platform. Stocks, ETFs, Forex, CFDs, commodities, and more. With research and tools right there in the platform, it's easier to make sense of what's moving the markets. Learn more at home.saxo.me.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Network International, the Middle East and Africa's fintech and digital payments champion. We make businesses happen and economies prosper by simplifying commerce and payments. Trusted by over 250 banks, fintechs and telcos, and 240,000 merchants in over 50 countries. We move fintech forward.
The financial world is changing fast. Institutions need to meet the growing client demand for crypto financial services, but they need a battle-tested platform to build upon.
AquaNow is a leading crypto financial services platform, powering incumbent institutions to launch crypto brokerage, payments, and remittance services for their clients, securely and at scale.
Be part of the transformation. Visit aquanow.com today.
The end touches your life
in more ways than you can imagine.
You want more tech,
more speed,
more convenience,
more entertainment,
more business solutions.
EAN gives you all that
and so much more.
EAN. Go for more.
Your wealth deserves an approach built for tomorrow. Welcome to WealthBricks Capital Partners Limited, where wealth is structured, preserved, and grown through trust. Our approach is holistic and covers private wealth, asset management, and corporate finance. Your wealth deserves more than legacy. It deserves foresight, clarity, and confidence. WealthBricks Capital Partners Limited, an independent and expert wealth management firm, regulated by the DFSA.
Welcome back to this AI special episode of Money Majlis. Today we're talking to Ayesha Khanna, a globally recognized AI expert, entrepreneur, and CEO of Addo, helping businesses leverage AI for growth. Ayesha, you recently launched Amplify as a media and education platform to help professionals turn AI from hype to everyday advantage, with a special focus, I believe, on mid-career women. What specific gap in the skills market did you see that existing on universities and corporate training were not addressing? We talked a little bit about that earlier. Can you say a bit more about it?
So there's three things that are really missing from universities at the moment. The first thing is relevance. It's absolutely the case that people are going to be expected to understand how to use AI assistants to be more productive at their job. Whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, an editor, a banker, whatever your job may be. Because these things are not taught to them. In law schools, for example, you are not taught how to use a tool like Harvey, which is one of the well-known AI legal assistants. You are not taught how to critically evaluate whether it's correct or not. You are not taught what data to upload to it or how to give it context based on your conversation with a client. You are not taught how to make sure that the privacy settings are kept at the enterprise level and you're not talking to a copy pasting into a chat GPT, for example. When in an interview you are asked about it, you have no experience. And that is what is needed at the moment. They need you to have experience so that you are better equipped to deal with this new workforce. That's the big gap at the moment for graduates. Then you come to the people who are mid-career. It's as relevant for men as for women, but women tend to take some time off, either because they're taking care of an aging parent, they may be having a child or taking care of a pet, may have a partner or a friend that they want to spend time with. All of these are reasons where women take sometimes breaks from their career. And when they come back, because AI is moving so fast, they sometimes lose their confidence. This is known as the broken rung on the ladder often. And in order to have women not face the disappointment of a great career turning to something uncertain, I believe if they came back to the market with these AI skills that they could take anytime in the evening, in the morning, whenever they have time, they would still be very relevant in the market when they came back, maybe even more so. And that's why I started Amplify for mid-career men and women, but we give scholarships to mid-career women who can't otherwise afford to take these courses so that they don't lose their confidence. And this would give them all the latest tools and thinking around AI. Not only would it give them experience using the AI assistants, but also step-by-step instructions on how to use AI agents, for example, with Claude Cowork that just came out in terms of some updates. And then critically, it would tell them not only about how to manage the AI agents, but how to think about what to do with the rest of their time. Because a good leader would say, I will use it. And before even they are asked, they would say, and this is how I would use the 20% of time that I've saved. And this is the savings or the growth potential in dollars that I see from this initiative. So really making them own it. Own it. I always say you're the boss of AI. You have to act that way. And then you have to own the money, the commitments, the impact that AI can have, and that will make you stand out. So I think that is not something that is taught in universities, but that will make anyone stand out and have more certainty in their career.
Aisha, how long is the program for Amplify?
So the program is actually a combination of modules that run from 1.5 hours to 3 hours. And then you can take 5 modules together, and that would make one course, for example. And it's offered with Neon Polytechnic. A catalog of courses is coming out. The first one has already come out, which is for Singaporeans. I'm also in partnership with chief.com for women executives, and we have 5 workshops and a series of templates and handouts that go along with it this year. And all of this would then be available on my YouTube channel for free or for more in-depth on the amplifypotential.ai platform as well. And that's just the beginning. With my podcast where I interview AI leaders from across the world, from startups to people who actually from HR, from even people who will tell you on how to save money that you earn because the job market will be a bit uncomfortable. All of this will be in my podcast and also on the platform. So it's really meant to give you the tools that you need to be confident with AI.
Fantastic. I believe Amplify is also building programs around role-specific AI assistants, right? For doctors, lawyers, teachers, and more. And you announced the skills platform launching soon. What
Yes.
does success look for you in, let's say, 3 years from now, in the number of learners, the geographies, or the impact stories?
100,000 professionals across Asia and the Middle East that can say, AI didn't take my job. I used AI to reinvent it and to be more successful than ever. In 3 years, that would be amazing for me because I really feel like it's something everyone wants. It's a little bit of not just teaching the tool, it's the storytelling around it so that there's an empathetic way to bring it all together so that you feel it's doable, it's achievable, and it can help you.
On LinkedIn, you talked about avoiding 2 extremes, naive optimism about AI and doom looping about job losses. Instead, pairing optimism with action and skills. For a 40-year-old professional listening to us today, what are the top 2 or 3 AI skills or habits they should build in the next 12 months?
The first thing they should do is start to take a subscription, could be Claude, Cowork, for example. I would recommend that immediately for $20 a month. And go to YouTube, look at some tutorials, and start using it as your chief of staff if you want it to come up every morning and tell you your tasks and manage your calendar. If it's Gmail, can manage email as well. Or you can also use Microsoft Teams. Microsoft has now just partnered with Anthropic to have cloud partner and power Microsoft 360. So that should be available to you as well. You can check on that. But you have to start using it at a personal level. Then you can ask in your team if it's possible, if your company is doing it, and start using it in your work as well. But if it's not, just start using it yourself. That's the most important thing that I would say you have to do. The second thing you have to do, and there are only 2 things, is that you have to get in the vibe. It's very difficult to have somebody tell you what to do and for you to care enough or remember enough and to just be about your job. And people have to understand this is such a transformative game changer that is happening in every industry. So all you need to do is sign up to a newsletter. I have a newsletter. It goes out 3 times 3 times a week that talks about the latest stories and startups and policy around the world and fun polls that make you think about how everything is changing with AI. But more importantly, after a while, you start connecting the dots. This startup is doing well. That means I could apply it in my industry. Oh, that's the policy. Next time we talk about this, I'll raise my hand and talk about what's happening in Indonesia that is not happening in Europe, for example. So that makes you educated about AI. AI education, because it's so horizontal and big, is not the same as AI skills. Being educated in AI is to truly see it across in a macroeconomic way. And frankly, that's a lot more fun than just learning skills, just to do more at your job. This way, you feel like you're part of the transformation and the movement overall.
Interesting. Aisha, you have more than 55,000 followers on LinkedIn. You have a community of listeners to your podcast. What are some of the recurring fears or questions that we hear most often from this community about AI and careers?
I mean, there are two main things. The first is this desire to use it, but don't know where to go. It's not immediate fear of your job. It's really, well, you know what? I want to do this. I don't know where to learn. And that's why I started the AI Leadership Institute, because I really feel like there's nothing out there that is a place that you can continually go to and get updated. The second thing is that, am I going to lose my job? And then it's not only am I going to lose my job, what's going to happen to my mortgage? How am I going to send my kids to college? How am I going to take care of my mom who's not feeling well? These are things people don't talk about, but it's directly related to financial pressure more than the search for meaning, right? It's not like if I lose my job, what will I do? Maybe people can find things to do. There is some loss of meaning, but that you can cover. It's truly a question of financial security. So that concerns them. And certainly if they see the skills gap, they can upskill. They know there's a chance for them to actually have something to do. And the third, actually, there's another one, is that they often ask about their children, especially if they're teenagers. What will my children do? Actually, some parents are, even with toddlers, they've asked me, what will my child do? Because they worry about their children as well, especially with news that graduates are not getting jobs. With some news saying it's AI. AI has taken away the place of young people, which, I don't think is necessarily true. But I think that there will obviously be job displacement, and it will be harder for new positions to come up. But if the companies get on a path of growth, they will need people. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur, but the companies will grow, I believe, even when using AI, because they will start to grow in some markets and start to have adjacent problems that they're solving. With creative leaders at the helm, we should be, especially in smaller countries, for example, like Singapore, I do not see us having such a stark case when there are no jobs. And in poorer countries, you have so many problems to solve that there's always some value creation that you can have.
Absolutely. Aisha, talk about children. Do you recommend to parents of small kids, I'm talking of, let's say, the cohort of, let's say, 6 to 12-year-olds, that the children start using AI today, use ChatGPT for their homework or not? This question is obviously haunting a lot of parents, saying should they be AI literate, start using these assistants, or is it going to take away their thinking skills? What is the right answer?
The answer is balance. In some way, you want to expose them to it. Ideally, the school does it. It provides a way for them not to demonize the AI because it helps them. It can help them understand it. But then it does encourage critical thinking, self-thinking, defending your ideas, because it has changed the way exams are done, because it has changed the way performance is measured. And that means you come in a room and you have a tutorial-like conversation in which you give ideas and you defend it, and there's no AI to talk to. So then the kids will feel that, well, it helps me, but sometimes I got to do it on my own. Systemically, you can also work with AI, like the Khan Academy that you give them that is not giving them answers. You can work with AI that gives them wrong answers at time, just to test and to remind them that it can make mistakes. You can also impose AI fasting, as some executives are doing now, in order to make them be without it. So there are many, many ways around it, but very, very successful entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley and others say we never let our child have a phone. I just think that when you keep something away from people for so long, you may create a rebellious streak. They may jump headlong into it, or they may not be equipped for it. I'm not sure what the right answer is. I think somebody who is in education, somebody who's in child psychology will be better equipped to answer this. But I do know that balance is the key to giving them a future in the work that will be available in the AI era.
I can't agree more. Let's now talk about your long-standing work, Ayesha, in women's empowerment through technology. You founded 21st Century Girls back in 2014, it's 12 years back. And over the years, the charity has taught thousands of girls free coding, AI, metaverse, Web3, and robotics classes in Singapore. When you look at the data from programs like Code in the Community or Empower AI for Girls, what outcomes are you most proud of?
I'm really proud of the fact that we had so many girls who came, and when we interviewed them, we took a survey, they said that they were unsure of their place in this AI world, that they read about it, and some even said that they felt the boys would be better at it because they had more engineering background, because they would put their hand up and they were more confident in answering questions. But after taking the course, which was about 10 Saturdays, 3 hours every Saturday, and we did multiple runs of this, they felt that not only did they have the confidence, they could connect it to business problems. And they were able to work with the technology and STEM colleagues that they had to come up with prototype solutions. And they had values on how to do it responsibly. Just by doing a short course, just by understanding some basics of coding, even if they never were going to be an engineer, but to understand the machine and how it thinks, their confidence levels went up. One of them even was featured in the Straits Times, which is the leading newspaper of the country, talking about how her brother and her father had discouraged her from taking computer science, but after seeing that she was not only capable, but enthusiastic and excelled in the presentation that they came to see that was in front of the whole cohort, that they encouraged her to do it. So it's not only their own confidence, but the confidence of the people around them, because historically there's been a bias against women sometimes in engineering. And people will write to me all the time still from Australia and from other places how it changed, how they looked at their own position, their own ability to have financial security, career mobility, and a meaningful work-life balance in the future.
Amazing. Have you thought of expanding the program beyond Singapore?
I have not. And actually, 2 years ago, after 10 years, I wrapped up 21st Century Girls as a charity because I began to see more programs come, and the number of girls taking computer science in Singapore went up quite a bit. And that's why I started Amplify, because I decided that actually the gap that I saw now was in mid-career men and women. So I've always been interested in targeting where the gap is. And hopefully even that won't remain for long, and then I'll start something else. But that has been always my passion, is to support and fill the gaps that currently exist institutionally.
And is Amplify available online for people in, let's say, Dubai or Middle East or somewhere else?
Yes, that's the beauty. And the Middle East is very much a place that I want to take it after I have piloted it in Singapore over the coming year. But it will be available online starting in April, much more with the catalog of courses. So please go to amplifypotential.ai, have a look at it, and take some courses, give some feedback. But for enterprise contracts with big companies, I'm planning to come to the Middle East maybe after a year or so.
Excellent. I think there is a huge gap in, the learning availability for both mid-career professionals, like you talked about. Also, I think high school students. Given the gap you talked about, and we talked about earlier about what schools and colleges are giving in terms of AI education, I wish there was an academy like yours available for kids who are maybe 14, 15, 16, 17 to understand how AI will change their lives in preparation for their university education. Don't you think?
I think it's important, but there is something about minors that requires a little bit of thinking because there's something about people who've been trained in pedagogy and education that is very powerful that I think that if it's a proper course introduced, the little modules here and there that we did with Google and IMDA in Singapore called Code for Fun that eventually, they've actually made it part of the extracurricular in schools was very useful, but it doesn't move the needle. To move the needle, the Ministry of Education and leading schools need to really think through this. And they are the best people to provide that encouragement, but also the pushback against those who may be too enthusiastic about introducing AI because they are thinking about the critical thinking skills and all the other skills that form part of a good education that those of us who are not experts in that may overlook. So whoever does it should be very thoughtful about it.
Interesting. You worked with governments and national agencies on AI strategies, right? Including areas like smart cities, digital infrastructure, and public services. Which country or city do you think is currently getting this balance right between rapid AI adoption and responsible governance? And what can others learn from this?
I may be biased, but I think Singapore is really getting it right because of two things. The first is that it has both encouraged a multi-pronged approach to introducing AI from education systems to helping small and medium businesses to attracting talent from some of the biggest companies, such as Jan LeCun's company is now going to be, who is chief scientist in Meta, is one of the AI godfathers, just launched a new startup, raised $1 billion. Singapore invested in it. It's going to be based here. So get the best talent to actually move our industries forward. And secondly, being used to truly improve citizen services. AI is now going to be used by the Ministry of Health to be able to predict those who may be at risk of chronic diseases such as cardiology, heart attacks. It's going to be used to help identify people, women at risk of breast cancer and ovarian cancer with the help of genetic profiling and genetic counseling. This means that it is not just for work or education. It is really for quality of life. And ultimately, any country or city that is able to improve quality of life with AI is the only one worth calling a smart city.
Absolutely true. A lot of public debate today swings between AI will take all our jobs and AI will magically create new ones. From what you see from inside companies and the government, how is the actual balance playing out in terms of automation, augmentation, and reskilling budgets?
Well, automation is happening pretty fast in some contexts like technology because tech is very good at implementing it. Augmentation is happening where there is more regulation or compliance or where they traditionally have human and more important decisions, whether it's law or medicine. But the reskilling is definitely not where it needs to be across the world. That is where the gap is. That's the single biggest issue in making sure that everyone comes along for this AI journey. And like I said, reskilling has to be relevant, it has to be timely, and it has to be done properly in terms of their ability to be AI fluent, as Minister Josephine Teo in Singapore says, which means you understand it, you can use it to add value, and you know how to govern it, as opposed to just learning one particular tool. For longevity, you need to have this sense of agility and adaptability with AI.
Aisha, you often say that the purpose of AI is to amplify human potential. On a personal level, how do you use AI day to day as an entrepreneur, board member, and content creator in ways that genuinely make you better, not just faster?
I use it a lot as a thinking partner. That's been the most interesting thing. I'll give it an idea and ask it to challenge it. I'll give it a role. I'll ask it to pressure test my assumptions, to rapidly research what my critics would say or have said. It definitely helps me become more thoughtful because I'm not so rushed in the searching of things, the researching of things. And it is able to help me synthesize my arguments based on evidence. So I may have an instinct and it proves me wrong when I'm unable to defend it properly. And that's very important. I think I haven't had that since I did my PhD, that kind of pushback, which people like me, I thrive on because I want to be thoughtful about what I say. And having an opinion, whichever field you may be in, is incredibly important if you want to be taken seriously. And for that, you can't only rely on the AI because it makes a lot of mistakes, but it's the combination of the AI's research, your own experience, and then pressure tested by the AI that provides a trifecta that's quite effective, in my opinion.
My last serious question, Ayesha. You build companies, you will run a charity for a decade. You sit on global boards and now lead a new education venture, which you're taking global. All this while being a visible public voice on AI. What keeps you grounded, and what advice would you give to young women who might want to design a similarly multidimensional tech career?
What keeps me grounded is the fact that very early on in my teens, when I was in Lahore and I was working in human rights in villages, in jails, in the inner city, I developed a deep respect for everyone by learning how capable people are, no matter what challenges they may have, what their social status may be, what their education status may be. And that is something that came from my mother, who encouraged me to think of every woman as a working woman, no matter what they did. That is very important because the elitism of tech is something that really bothers me because I just doesn't make any sense to me. I think that if we all have access to the same technology and we can all learn how to use it well, then people will not have this unjust discrepancy in what life has given them because we're all equally capable. I 100% have seen it with my own eyes where I was doing microfinance and went with my Harvard degree and the woman in the hut talking about how she was going to earn money with in a village by buying some cows. She knew everything. Suvo. She understood interest rates. She understood, she might not have called it that. She understood cash flow. She understood everything much better than me. She had, just because she didn't have the language to articulate it in jargon doesn't mean that she didn't understand it. Yeah. So for me, that's not only keeps me grounded, that is a reality that I live with. And as a result, I'm a big believer in the benefit that can come. Can you imagine if all 6 billion people had access, how much good that would do to my life, to my health, to my kids, to my friends? That would be a great world to live in.
And what advice would you give to young women who are looking for a career in technology?
Oh, I would say there's never been a better time for anyone to step in because you can use artificial intelligence as a tutor and you can ask it to tell you things that explain it in a way that a layperson would understand or a PhD supervisor would understand, and you should actively try to work on your skills. There is no substitute for trying to work on skills. And for the first time, people don't care if you went to a Harvard or you went to no school. People will not care if your mommy and daddy have a BMW or you have a bicycle. The meritocracy because AI will be doing a lot of this work, the people who are chosen will be truly exceptional. And anybody can be exceptional if they are given that education. So I think it's a great time because anybody, any minority or person that's been marginalized, they don't need to be marginalized anymore. So that's my hope for this.
Very, very well said, Ayesha. That is a good segue to my final section of the podcast, the fun section, where I ask you 8 fun rapid fire questions. No right or wrong answer, just one-line answers. And the first thing that comes to your mind. The one AI tool that you personally can't live without right now.
Claude Cowork.
Excellent. A book, a podcast, or newsletter on technology that you keep recommending to others, apart from your own.
I love the podcast No Priors that Sarah Guo co-hosted with investor Elad Gil.
If you were not working on AI, which field would you likely be in?
Probably film or theater because I'm very creative and I love to write and produce.
Okay, not as an actress.
No.
Just checking.
Or as a director, as a writer.
Most director. Okay. The most surprising industry where you've seen a genuinely creative use of AI recently. Something that surprised you.
I have to think about this a little bit because there's so many examples now. But I was reading recently about tractors and other kinds of agricultural products, and John Deere has done an incredible as a company by putting it into the very machinery that they use. We usually hear about large retailers like Walmart or large companies like Meta or tech companies. But the most interesting for me are the manufacturing companies because that is the guts of the economy. So I thought they did a very impressive job.
Interesting. Which city do you find the most intellectually engaging, energizing, let's say, for AI conversations? Is it Singapore, New York, London, Dubai, or somewhere else?
They're all great, but Singapore, hands down, is so energizing for me. We've had an influx of people coming in, having these conversations, startups, entrepreneurs, researchers that are invited over here for conferences, but also many that move over here. And the seriousness and the fun that is around these kind of conversations is really inspiring.
One myth about AI you wish people would stop repeating at dinner parties.
That AI doesn't need human beings. Actually, human beings are very much needed in an age of AI.
The proudest moment, Ayesha, so far from your work with girls and women in technology. The one story you think about on tough days.
Probably the first person that moved me to work and start in girls' education was a young girl who was working on a little electronics robot at a hackathon. And her mother came and took her away from me and said, put her son in front of me, said, he's much better at this. And it really, really saddened me because that girl was very good. And I tried to look for her. Eventually, her grandmother brought her back. And the joy on her face when she came back and she rapidly completed the electronic circuit and everything else, that story and the look on her face, the encouragement from her grandmother and the bias that her mother had in all good intentions brought together everything that I needed to know to motivate me to start 21st Century Girls.
What a lovely story. If you were to describe the future of work in 3 words, what would they be?
Design it yourself.
Excellent.
You are the builder, you're the designer, you're the boss of AI.
Ayesha Khanna, it's been a fascinating conversation. And what stands out for me, Ayesha, is not your insistence that AI is not just a technology story. It's about people, it's a leadership story, it's a skills story, and from your case, a very much inclusion story. Thank you for all the work you've done over more than a decade to bring thousands of girls and women into the world of coding and AI, and now to support mid-career women through Amplify and its scholarships. I wish you come to Dubai sooner than 1 year. Any last comments?
Thank you so much, Suvo. This was such a great and fun conversation.
Fab Business Banking presents Money Majlis, a podcast shaping conversations on banking, finance, technology, and marketing. Visit bankfab.com to learn more.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Saxo Bank, the trusted European bank helping you make better investment decisions.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Network International, the leading digital payments technology company in the Middle East and Africa.
Money Majlis is proudly supported by Aqua Now, the premier crypto-as-a-service provider, now building in partnership with the top financial institutions in the Middle East. Discover more at aquanow.com.
Money Majlis is brought to you by E&, a global technology group. Money Majlis is proudly sponsored by WealthBricks Capital Partners Limited, the trusted, independent, and expert wealth management firm.
I hope this episode has given you not just ideas, but also a sense of agency that Ayesha talked about. So whether you're leading a bank, managing a team, starting a fintech, or planning your own career move, the message is clear. Don't wait for the future of work to happen to you. Start designing it with AI as your partner. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, rate, and share it with someone who needs to hear this conversation. Until next time, ma salama. Stay well, stay curious, and do good.